Vabbè.
Hi everyone, we're just going to give it 5 minutes and let everyone join and then we'll get started. I think we're expecting a couple more, so I'll just give it another minute or so and then we'll get started. Can someone just put in the chat if they can hear me okay? Perfect, thank you so much. I will put my camera on and share the screen in just a minute. Just give it another minute for people to join, okay?
The chat's disabled.
Okay, let me just have a little look at that. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, will someone see if that's working for them now? The chat. Okay, perfect. Phew. Right, we will get started now. People might join, or they might not, but we'll get started. So, um, don't think the lighting is very good in here. Hopefully you can kind of see me, although not very well. Just turn the light on. Can we do anything? Okay, so I'm Ellie. I'm going into my final year of medical school, and I'm going to be running the situational judgment kind of our crash course and UCAT top tips, okay, last minute kind of thing. So lovely to meet you all. It's very relaxed, very open. So if at any point you have a question, just feel free to put it in the chat. Or if you want to unmute, there's not that many of us, so you can just speak as well. So yeah, I'll get my screen shared and then we'll get started. Okay. Now, can everyone see that okay? Perfect. Brilliant. Okay, so um just trying to sort this about. Okay, so as I said, this is our situational judgment course. And I'm Ellie, so lovely to meet you all, guys. So a little bit about SixMed. So SixMed is a brilliant company created by medical students for medical students, and they do various events. And this is one of their surgery webinars, but this is specifically for their SJT, for the UCAT, and we'll do some top tips, general top tips at the UCAT to wrap up as well when we're finished today. So, about me again, I'm a fifth year, or just about to be. I've done various UCAT crash courses and UCAT tutoring. I love teaching, and I'm quite interested in paediatrics at the moment for a career. So, that's a little bit about me. The agenda for today is we're going to spend a bit of time talking about what the SJT is, just a recap, top tips for it, do some practice questions, then a little bit of a Q&A, and then we'll go through some of the top tips for the other parts of the UCAT as well at the end. Okay. So just general rules, just keep your mics muted. It just helps with interference and things. But if you do have a question and you'd rather speak than put it in the chat, I'm more than happy for you to just to speak up. And yeah, there'll be questions and it's going to require you guys to put your answers in the box to the SJT practice questions that we're doing. Okay. There's no pressure, there's no nothing if you get it wrong. I just want you to all be engaging with me and that makes the session run a lot better. So that'd be really appreciated. So to start, on a scale of 1 to 4, how confident do you feel about SJT right now? Okay, we've got a couple of threes. Okay, So 3 is kind of the general consensus. That's good. That's a good place to be. So hopefully we can get you all up to 4 in this session and before your UCATs. Have we got any UCAT dates coming up soon? When are your UCATs booked in for? A couple of September's one. We've got an August 29th. Good luck. 9th September. Perfect, guys. Okay. So hopefully what we learned from here today, you can take away and use in your kind of last stages of UCAT prep. Okay. Perfect. So the aims of J sessions are to understand the types of questions you might get and then practice them as a group. And yeah, as I said, go over some top tips for all sections of the UCAT as well. So what is the SJT section? So it's approaching various difficult scenarios. There's about 66 questions for 26 minutes, 40 seconds per question. People generally find the time in for this, although there's so many questions, quite good. People don't tend to run out of time. But always just keeping an eye on the clock is really important in all sections. But don't just think because you've done okay in the past that you don't need to keep an eye up on the clock. So there's 2 main question types in the SJ, the situational judgment part of the UCAT. There's appropriateness and there's importance. So we're going to talk briefly about the difference between them, the difference of the answers and what the different answers mean. So definitions for the importance questions. So we've got very important. That's something that is vital to take into account, okay? Important, it's something that's important, but it's not vital, okay? With minor importance, it could be taken into account, but it doesn't matter if it's considered or not. And not important at all, you should definitely not take this into account, okay? So that's just a little breakdown of what those answers mean when you're putting them to these questions. So just thinking about that can sometimes help in the scenario of which one it might be, okay? And then appropriateness, and you might have seen this before, it's the triangle of appropriateness. So when you're reading a question, a STEM, on an appropriateness question, you want to be thinking, is that response to that scenario, is it effective, is it professional, and is it well timed, okay? And you'll often find that the well timed bit in the question, so one of the answers might be that they're going to call up another doctor right now in front of everyone, shout at them. Is that well timed? No, it's not. So thinking about when you do things, and also thinking about escalation. So if you got into a, someone's done something that's not good. So someone has been coming to work late too many times. You got to think about levels of escalation. So the answer might be tell their highest boss immediately. Well, that's not appropriate because you're jumping 6,000 steps, okay? You always want to resolve things locally first, so you want to speak to the person. And if they keep doing it, that's when you start to escalate it. So just make sure you're reading the question. Is it the first time they've done something like this, or have they done this loads of times? Because that's going to affect how appropriate the level of escalation is from the answer, okay? So generally what's being tested in the situational judgment part of the UCAT is 2 main things, your interpersonal competencies and your ethical competencies. So your interpersonal competencies are things like decision making, leadership, communication, teamwork, empathy, humility, dealing with authority, okay? And then your ethical competencies are the sorts of things that you're going to find in the GMC's Good Medical Practice, okay? So that book, whenever your UCAT is, whether it's next week or in a few weeks, you need to be familiar with this guidance, okay? Because these things are the basis of what they're testing you on in the situational judgment, okay? So just make sure you're familiar with it. And it's something that is going to be really important to be familiar with when you get to interview level as well. And you're doing interview questions. They might reference good medical practice in it. Okay, so come familiar with this book, have a flick through it. I'm not saying remember the whole book and be able to recite it, but having a good idea of the key principles from in that book would be really important. Okay. So my general tips for SJT are remember that medical students or dental students, they're not fully fledged clinicians yet, and they need to behave within the limits of their competencies. So whatever the STEM is, just make sure you know who you are, okay? Because if you're a medical student, what the answer is might not be appropriate for you, but it might be appropriate for you if you're a doctor in the scenario, okay? And that's my 3rd point, making sure you're aware who is who and who you are in the answer, okay? So how appropriate is it for John to do the following things. It might be different to how appropriate it is for Samantha to do the following things, okay? So just being aware of who is who and what you're answering, okay? Confidentiality, consent, and patient safety will be recurring themes. Patient safety will be a definite recurring theme. And you'll find when doing practice questions, if patient safety is even, remotely threatened, then that is going to be the extremes of your answers. So if it's an action that means that the patient won't be safe, it'll be a very inappropriate action. And if it's something to take into consideration about patient safety, it's going to be very important. That's the general thing you find. If it's to do with patient safety, it's going to be the extremes of the answers, okay? Um, Patients need to always come first, that's what I was pretty much saying, and escalating to seniors appropriately, not all the way to the top first. So that's what I was saying before. You need to know, resolve things locally if it's the first time, and then you kind of escalate that up to the next level, to the next level, to the next level, as it happens more often. So making sure you understand in the context of the scenario, is this the first time they're doing it, or have they done this, thousands of times before? Okay. So that was a real run through of top tips for SJT and a reminder about the section in the exam itself. So we're going to do some practice questions. Before we start, does anyone have any burning questions before we get on to test questions? Yeah, you should be able to find a PDF version of GMC's Good Medical Practice online. Yep, if you just search it, it should take you to a link to the GMC's website, and they should have it on there, the Good Medical Practice. No worries. Okay, so we are going to do some practice questions. We're going to have about 40 seconds per question, but we are going to talk through, each answer as well. So we will get started. I'll get my timer out and I will let you know when your time is up. Okay. So 40 seconds starting now. And if you guys can pop your answer in the chat when you're done, that'd be perfect. Okay, so that's your 40 seconds up. Have we got everyone's answers in? We've got a fair few. So we've got with answers. We've got A, we've got B, and we've got D between all the people who've put answers in. So let's have a little look. So this answer is A, very appropriate. So well done to those who put A. So when we're reading this scenario, so Roger's a medical student. He's accompanying two junior doctors, Mark and Amy. The two junior doctors are making fun of one of the patients on the ward, and the patient is within earshot and looks visibly distressed, but doesn't say anything. So how appropriate is this quietly mentioned to the junior doctors that the patient can hear them and is looking uneasy? Okay, so when we're thinking about our triangle of appropriateness, we've got professional, effective, and well timed. So this is, do we think it's professional? Yeah. You quietly mentioned to the junior doctors, it's a professional thing to do. You shouldn't be saying anything about patients. You shouldn't be making anyone feel uncomfortable. So definitely a professional thing to do to say something. Well timed, yeah, I think telling them there and then is well timed because the longer it goes on, the more distressed the patient is going to feel. So that's definitely professional, definitely well timed. And is it effective? Well, it's going to be effective because telling the junior doctors that they're making the patient distressed is going to make them stop. So overall, this would be a very appropriate answer to this scenario. Okay, So well done, you guys. We put A. Um, just out of interest, we did have a D. So I'm just wondering why you thought it was on that side of the appropriateness scale. Okay, so obviously A and B are kind of together saying that it is good, and C and D are kind of together saying that it wouldn't be good. So just wondering if anyone who said D thought why they thought it wasn't appropriate. Yeah, so okay, that's a good point. You don't want the patient to hear them saying that. But the fact that it says in the stem or the answer that they're quietly mentioning it, I think you can infer from that that it's so that the patient can't hear them. Um, so half marks in the exam. I'm not 100% sure how they mark the SJT. I used to hear that there was some marking if you got the right side of the scale, but you'd have to double check. Um, Obviously you get the band for your situational judgment as opposed to a mark. So okay, so next question. At the end of the day, mentioned to the junior doctor that their behaviour was inappropriate. What do we think of this one? Okay, I'll give it a couple more seconds if anyone wants to put an answer in. Okay, so overall we've got a pretty even split between B's and C's in our answers here. So very interesting. So answer yet is B. Appropriate but not ideal. Okay. So the split that we've got here, B and B's and C's, means that there's a bit of a disagreement whether it's an appropriate or inappropriate. So someone please tell me why they thought it was appropriate, and someone who thought it was on the inappropriate scale, tell me why you think it was inappropriate. Okay, so really good. Thank you guys for being so engaged. It really makes it better. So yeah, I think yeah. So when we think about appropriateness, again, it's always nice to break down the scenario into the triangle. Is it effective? Is it professional? Is it well timed? Now, I agree that it's not well timed, and that's the problem. That's why it's not very appropriate because yeah, like you said, they're going to be endured lots of making fun of. You want to stop it sooner rather than letting the patient be distressed. So yeah, you do want it's not very well timed, but it does address the problem and it does still stop it, so it is effective, and they are still doing it in a professional way. Um, so I would say it is definitely on the appropriate side of the scale. But yeah, B, appropriate but not ideal. So I do see what people are saying that obviously the timing is the key part here, and the patient's potentially going to be enduring listening to these comments for longer. But the fact that it is still effective and it's still professional and it's still going to, prevent this happening again would put it on the appropriate side of the scale. Hope that makes sense. But really good, well done to those who put B, and those who put C. I do understand. It's quite a tricky one, this one. So scenario 3. Tell Mark and Amy's overseeing senior consultant about their behaviour at the end of the week. Yeah, I'll give it a few more seconds for people to put answers in. Okay, perfect. So I think we're quite in agreement that it's on the inappropriate side of the scale. And the answer is D, very inappropriate. Okay, so when we're thinking about this question, again, let's think about the triangle of appropriateness. Think about effective, professional, well timed. Now, it's definitely not well timed, and it's even worse than the last scenario. Okay, so leaving until the end of the week is not great. Um, being professional, I suppose we're talking about the levels of escalation. Okay, so as I mentioned before, when in one of the tips, is that appropriate to go straight to their senior consultant without going to them first? So no. So we want to resolve things locally always first. If it's the first time as well, we definitely want to do that. So this scenario, the timing is all off, and also the escalation is off. Okay. And yeah, that would make it very inappropriate. Okay. And the last part for this scenario. So audibly lecture Mark and Amy about how unprofessional and upsetting their behaviour is. I'll give it a few more seconds if anyone's got wants to put any other answers in. Okay. So the answer to this one is D, very inappropriate. Yep. So if we're thinking about um our levels of appropriateness, this is definitely very inappropriate. If we're audibly lecturing Mark and Amy, then it's going to make the patient's going to hear and the patient's going to be even more uncomfortable. Okay. Um, audibly lecturing them is not very professional. Um, we should always do things, take people to the sides and have conversations with them where we can. That's definitely not professional. And it might not be effective because it's quite confrontational, it's quite aggressive to audibly lecture them on how unprofessional and kind of obsessing their behaviour is if you're shouting at them. Um, so yeah, definitely not professional, probably not effective, probably will damage your relationship with Mark and Amy in the working environment, and it's also not going to make the patient feel any better. So definitely very inappropriate. Okay. So we got quite a few D's there, so well done, guys. So got another scenario here. So a patient called Roshan is due for an appendectomy tomorrow at 9 a.m. Dr. Aki was performing routine checks on the patient before the operation tomorrow and realised the team have not checked a vital component of the patient's health which could affect the operation. The lab is currently closed and will open tomorrow at 10 a.m. and therefore blood can't be analysed before the operation. How appropriate are the following scenarios? So 1. Call the surgical registrar on call as soon as he can. You guys just give it a couple more seconds. Okay, I think we've got pretty much all A's, maybe a couple of B's. Um, so well done, guys. That's definitely very appropriate. So well timed. You know, you need to call the surgical registrar as soon as you can. Um, it's effective. You need to let them know. And definitely appropriate. So yeah, very appropriate. Well done, guys. So two, reschedule Rashan's operation for the next day, but don't inform him while doing so. Perfect. Everyone has put an answer in pretty much. So this one is D, very inappropriate. So well done to those guys who put D. So when we're thinking about our appropriateness triangle and things being appropriate, so he's rescheduling Rashan's operation for the next day and not informing him. So that automatically makes it very inappropriate because you know part of the duties of being a doctor, as you may know, and you'll come to learn when you're doing your interview prep, is the duty of candor, being open and honest when things go wrong, but just being open and honest all the time. So this is this patient's operation. This is a big deal in this patient's life, as it is for any patient getting anything done. So we should always be telling patients what we're doing and why we're doing it, and you know, not going behind their back and doing things. Okay, so definitely the fact they're not informing him makes this a very inappropriate um answer to the scenario. Okay, that's the main bit that makes it very inappropriate. Okay. So Joe, a final year medical student, comes to the ward extremely hungover and complains to Anna that he hasn't slept all night and still feels drunk. Joe mentions that this is the third time this month that this has happened and that he really should stop. He also recounts to Anna that he's found it difficult to carry out examinations when he's previously been in this state. So how important are the following taken into consideration? So one, Joe has been asked to carry out a difficult procedure today. Give it a couple more seconds, let everyone have a go at answering. So really good. That would be A, very important. So it says in the stem that he finds it difficult to carry out examinations when he's been in this state, and the fact that he's been asked to carry out a difficult procedure today is going to be very important. It's going to be very relevant to this scenario. Okay, and you could infer that this could affect patient safety. He's not in a state to do these difficult procedures, so that's why it makes it very important, even more. Like we said before, anything that's going to put patients at risk is going to be the extremes of the answers. Okay. Great, well done, guys. How important is this taken into consideration? The medical school issued strict rules at the start of the year prohibiting students from being under the influence of alcohol or legal drugs whilst on duty. Okay, give it a couple more seconds if anyone else wants to put an answer in. Okay, so this one is A, very important. So well done. I think most of you put A. Um, so yeah, in importance questions, if there's guidance from the medical school, they like to see that you think that that's very important, which it is, and those kind of answers, they're also going to be very important. So that's something you can look out for. But yeah, if the guidance from the medical school, strictly prohibits that, then that is going to be important in this scenario as he's doing something directly against the medical school. So well done, guys. Several other students are in a similar state to Joe. How important is this? So I'll give it a few more seconds so everyone can put an answer in. So we've got a real range of answers here. I think we've got all of the options at some point. So let's have a look. So this is C, of minor importance. So in terms of this scenario, it's on the less important side, because we're thinking about Joe and his, him coming in this state. So other students being in a similar state to Joe isn't on the important side for this scenario, for what we're thinking about in this scenario. But it is of importance because, of other students are being in this state, then, other patients potentially could be at risk. So you got to think about that. So that's why it's not important at all. But it's definitely on the, that side of the spectrum, the not important side, because in what Joe's done, the fact that other people are in a similar state doesn't affect this situation. Okay, for in terms of what we're looking about Joe's impact on Joe's placement, but it does have some impact if other people are in this state. Okay, so yeah, C, minor importance. And how important is this scenario? So Joe has made a bet with another student this morning that he won't be disciplined for being in this state. Okay, so I think we're quite unanimous that this is D, not important at all. Um, and this is, this doesn't reflect good on Joe at all. So definitely not something you should do. But yeah, well done, guys. Don't think I need to explain. That's pretty unanimous. So yeah, D, not important at all. How about keeping the information Joe has disclosed between them, maintain confidentiality? How important would that be? Okay, I'll give it a few more seconds for everyone puts an answer in. Okay, so we've got a real range of answers here again today. Yep, it is D, not important at all. And I think someone said it's particularly due to patient safety. So, um, you know, something needs to be done to stop Joe from being in this state in placement again. Because being in this state, not being able to carry out procedures is potentially putting patient safety at risk. So the fact that to keep this confidential between them is not important at all in the scenario. Someone would need to know, um, especially if he was carrying on doing it. And as he said, it's the third time this month, so it probably would be the next step to escalate this. So yeah, not important at all. And I think the buzzword confidentiality can sometimes trip people up and put them want to put A, but in this scenario, it's not like patient confidentiality. It's kind of like you know that they've come in drunk to placement. It's a different type of that even though they're using that confidentiality buzzword that might draw you to put something more important, just think about it in the context of the scenario. He's coming into placement drunk, hungover, whatever, affecting his ability to do what he needs to do on placement, putting patients at risk. So this is not important at all because in the grand scheme of things, he's putting patients at risk. If that makes sense. Okay, so we've got to the end of them questions. Got about 15 minutes or so left, and we've got to run through some top tips for the other sections of the UCAT as well. So we'll just quickly wrap up this section. So top tips, as I said, read the GMC guidance to a good doctor. Should be able to find a PDF online if you Google that, have a flick through. Don't need to remember it, don't need to recite it, just having a good understanding of the key principles in it. Remember that triangle of appropriateness and use it when you come across a scenario. If you're not 100% sure between a couple of options, it can sometimes help, narrow that down. So timeliness, effectiveness, and professionalism. And go with your gut. There's nothing worse than changing your answer about a million times, because your gut answer is often right. So just a quick wrap up right now. So how confident do you feel about SJT now? So I appreciate that it's been a short question session, but it was just a little masterclass webinar. Okay. We've got a couple of fours, 3.5. That's good. There must have been some benefit from this. Four, perfect. Again, we've got some more things to go through. This isn't the end of the session, but just the end of the questions there for now. Yeah, three, yeah, more confident. Right. That's really good to hear that there's some confidence. And hopefully those tips and tricks on the SJT that we went through will help in your exam. Now I want to throw you some of my other tips for the other sections in a bit of a quick pit stop for each part of the UCAT. So bear with me. I'll just stop this screen share. and then I will switch over and we can talk very quickly about the other sections. Okay. So hopefully you can all see this screen. Can I just get a raise hand or a yes or something from someone? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, guys. So again, quick pit stop tour through the other sections of the UCAT. So general advice for the UCAT in terms. If you don't know, please, guess, flag, move on. And I say this for every section of the UCAT, okay? You're not going to score higher. You know, the people who score the highest are the ones who can really stick to their timings and be brutal. So be absolutely brutal with your timings. If you are going over that time, you need to flag, guess, and move on. Okay, it is not worth it. So those are the people who do the best, who are absolutely brutal with flagging, skipping, and moving on. Okay, always put an answer, but flagging and moving on. Learning to skim read. It it's what people say all the time, and especially for verbal reasoning. But it will really help. Picking out key phrases, really important. And be confident, keep practicing, and don't burn yourself out. Okay, give yourself breaks and be kind to yourself because that's always really important. So, verbal reasoning. Read the question first. Please, do not read the big text of passage first. Okay, read the question. You're going to identify keywords from the question, find those keywords in the text, and answer the question, okay? You're not going to ever read the whole set of text. You're going to skim read, you're going to look for keywords, okay? And if you are taking too much time, please flag, skip, and move on. Flag, guess, and move on. In terms of when you're picking out your keywords, these are things really good like numbers, proper nouns, names can be really good, but just be aware that they can come up multiple times within the text. So you just need to make sure you've found all the times it comes up so that you're not misled with the answer. And always read a little bit before the keyword and a little bit after, just to get context for what the keyword's in, because there's nothing worse than just reading from the keyword and not knowing that before it says not. You know, these things are not real. And then you read your keyword and you think that it is real. So make sure you find your keyword, read a bit before, a bit after, and make sure you find all the places that keyword is mentioned so you're not led wrong. Okay. Decision making. Use the whiteboard that you're given. Okay, it's there for a reason. Write down key information. Don't skim read these ones. Decision making, every word is really important in the question. So make sure you read everything in decision making. Don't make assumptions. Practice Venn diagrams. They're something that you can get better at with practice. So do practice them. And as always, flag, guess, skip, come back to it later. That is going to be the underlying tip for all of these sections. Okay, please do that. Especially logic puzzles, you want to be writing them down. Okay, some people may be able to keep it all in your head, but please, it you might make mistakes. So if you can just practice really quickly drawing a little table for your logic puzzles, and hopefully that'll stop you from making mistakes in the exam. And be brutal. You get about a minute a question for decision making. And that does seem a lot compared to other sections, but they require a lot of brain power, so that minute will go fast. If you are spending over a minute, you need to be skipping, flagging, guessing, moving on, okay? It's not worth it. There might be really easy, quick questions as the last ones. You don't want to miss out on them because you've spent ages on a question before that you might not even get right. So remember, the people who do the best are the ones who are brutal with their timings and their flagging and their skipping. Quantitative reasoning, okay? People either love it or hate it. You can speed up your time in this by practicing mental maths. There are online websites that you can find if you just Google for mental maths quizzes and things that'll just really quickly get you to do additions, multiplications, things to speed yourself up. Practice with the calculator, practice the kind of shortcuts on the computer that you'll get in the UCAT, and like the UCAT website will have them. It's like Alt N for next and flagging and things, so you don't have to move your mouse up to all the buttons. There's little keyboard shortcuts. Don't think about things you flagged. Every question you need to start fresh. Again, there will be trickier questions in the maths and there'll be easier questions. So if you're spending too long, you need to flag, yes, move on, because there will be some easier ones that you will get later on. And as I said, for decision making, you do not want to be spending longer on questions you might not even get right when there's a set coming up that you would got all of them if you'd let yourself have the time. Um, in also in quantitative reasoning, it's not on there, but you can always tell if the answers in the question, the answers to the question are quite far apart. So if they're like 10, 500, 3,000, 10,000, 15,000 of the answers, you can often kind of estimate and guess with the working out. Because they're far enough away that if you're rounding things, it won't really make a difference. So that's always a good little tip. Look at the answers. If they're far enough apart, you can probably just estimate and round. But if they're close together, you're gonna have to do some proper working out. Yes, I think they would be my additional tips for quantitative reasoning. And yeah, you need to know your basics. So your formulae for maths that you need to be familiar with. You need to know your areas of shapes, circles, etc., triangles. You need to know them well, so you can just call them up like that. Speed equals distance over time always comes up. Know how to rearrange it. Be comfortable doing that because you're gonna have to do it quick. Your probability, so your and your ors, I guess that's kind of overlap with decision making, knowing the and your or rules. A miles is 1.6 kilometers. That's always really handy to have. Other conversions they'll probably give you, but just being comfortable doing unit conversions. So practicing them's always really good. They love percentage change. So if you feel a bit wobbly on percentage change, just practice it, practice and practice because they love percentage increase, percentage decrease, doing your change over original times 100, just get that drilled into your head because it's going to save you so much time in the exam if you're just happy with that. Okay. Abstract reasoning. Yeah, my top tips for this would be to look in the simplest box for each set. So you have a box with two shapes in, look in that one and look in the simplest box in set B and compare them. Really look at what's different between them or what's similar. And then you can compare that simplest box to the rest of the boxes in set A. And sometimes that can really help spot a pattern. Be brutal with your flagging, your guessing, and your skipping because this is quite time pressured. And if it's not jumping out to you, it's not going to jump out to you the more you look at it. You're just going to miss out on marks from other questions later on. So please be brutal with your flag, skipping, and guessing. It's going to get you, more points. There are ways you can search through patterns. So you can use your SSSPN. I think there's different acronyms for this. I think I use Scans Oasis, which was a bit long, but whatever works for you. So this is SSSPN. This is shape, size, shade, position, number. So the more you practice, you should be thinking through this for every box kind of set you go through, and then eventually it'll just become second nature. As you look at a pattern, you'll start to use this to see if it's there. My other tip for abstract reasoning would be when you're getting these really tricky puzzles, so especially like arrow patterns, I always found them quite difficult. I'd always kind of write them on a flashcard and stick them up around my room or wherever I was doing my UCAT practice so that I always saw them. Some people kind of put the patterns they're not getting right into a Word document and just have them all together. But you kind of create this collection of patterns that you hadn't thought about before. And then you kind of look at them and try and kind of build that into your memory. So if it came up something similar, you'd almost recognize it in the exam. So yeah, that really helped me out with my abstract reasoning. Some things that to look out for, like I said about arrows, it can be the direction that arrows are pointing in. The arrows can be pointing at certain shapes. Arrows can be pointing at the smallest shape. Yeah. Angles are quite tricky. It's something to consider, but maybe not jump too straight away. But like all the shapes got acute angles, have all the shape got obtuse angles, it's something to do with right angles. They can be quite tricky, but good to have in the back of your mind. So yeah, I would definitely start a collection if it's not, if you haven't already been of abstract reasoning patterns that you've come across and you just didn't even think about at all. Because that's going to just help having that there. Um, so situational judgment, which we've always already kind of gone over, haven't we? But to reiterate, the GMC guidance of good medical practice is going to really help. And it might put things into context a bit more when you've been doing your questions. If you just have a flick through that, don't stress over it. Apparently 70% of the answers are either very appropriate or very inappropriate, so they're either extreme. So that might be something to take in consideration if you're not sure and you want to guess. If you think you know that it's on the appropriate level, but you're not sure between A and B, maybe going for A would be a better guess. But apparently 70% of the answers are very appropriate or very inappropriate. And as always, flag skip, come back later if you're not sure. Okay. And don't, even though situation judgment people find the timing better, don't take it for granted because you'd really be annoyed at yourself if you didn't answer loads of questions because you were taking your time. So still be strict with your time in situational judgment. Okay. So that is us almost wrapped up. So thank you so much for coming and listening to me yapper on. I've opened up the floor to any questions now, and I'll be sticking around for the next 5 minutes or so. So any questions, drop them in the chat. Can be about any part of the UCAT, any section, about the SJT, about anything. Just drop them in the chat. Okay, so towards UCAT on Friday, any advice this last week? So what are we on now? Sunday. So I wouldn't burn yourself out, okay, doing too much in the run up because it's going to be quite a stressful day. So I would just think about what your weakest areas are of the UCAT and spending a bit of time each day going through them. So if it's verbal reasoning that you get the lowest mark in when you've been doing your practice tests, then I would spend a bit of time going over that, um, reading over kind of skim reading, doing some practice questions on it. Um, yeah. So yeah, for the being the UCAT on Friday, like I said, don't burn yourself out. Good luck for it. I'm sure you've worked really hard. And just remember your timings. When you're in there, it can be really tricky. Just keep an eye on the clock when you start each section, and knowing how long you have for each section is really going to help. But yeah, I think you'll be absolutely fine. Okay. Okay, yeah, so about this partial marks for the SJT, I'm really sorry, I'm not 100% sure how the marking works for the SJT. Um if you're not sure, can you put the options in the middle, B or C? Because that's what I did miss question the answer was A or C. So when I got put B, I got partial marks. So yeah, if they do give partial marks, then I suppose you could do that. The six med tip was just saying that statistically 70% of the answers are either A or D, so the extremes, the very appropriate or the very inappropriate. So that I was just saying that if you were guessing, it might be there. Will we get a recording of this webinar and how we access the recording group? I will ask for you. I will just drop a message and check so I can let you know before this ends. No worries. What's the best way to reflect on questions you got wrong? So like I said, for abstract reasoning, I would literally draw them out or print screen them onto a Word document, whatever you do, and stick them somewhere or just look in that Word document and just refresh your brain, refresh your brain, refresh your brain. For other questions like situational judgment, I would just think about why did you put the answer you did and why is the answer what it is and what's the difference there? What's the difference in your thinking and the difference in the question thinking, because you need to kind of get onto their wavelength for the panel of experts that set the answers. So yeah, for SJT. For decision making and quantitative reasoning, it'll be quite kind of clear where you've gone wrong. So you can just do more kind of practice of that kind of question type if you're getting it wrong. Um, yeah, verbal reasoning, it can be quite tricky, but just practicing and getting faster with your reading and picking out keywords can help. Yeah, I'll ask about the webinar. But yeah, everyone who if has no questions, you're free to go. Thank you so much for coming today. Um, and anyone else who has any questions, I'll be sticking around if you want to ask any more questions. I'll just ask about the webinar. Okay, would I recommend UCAT tutoring? I think it definitely can help. When is your UCAT? I can't quite remember. 9th of September. So it can definitely can help. And you kind of do it regularly with the same person, and they can start to pick up on your areas of weakness, prepare resources. So it might be good if you did get in contact to try and get a few hours and just see if that worked for you. Um, they can help you set up like kind of revision timetables up till the exam and lay it out. Um, okay. Um, for QI, use some mathematical frequencies, SJT for extraction. Um, I think that interest could come up as a question. I don't think I've seen it very much in practice questions. Um, the cheat sheet for each question. We haven't got a cheat sheet made that we could give. We've just kind of got top tips. But like I said, for quantitative reasoning, your formulas that you should know, your speed equals distance time, your conversion from mile to kilometre, your areas of shape, percentage change, those are the key things. As you go through practice questions, you can make your own cheat sheet. You could look at what questions are wanting from you and write down those formulas on a sheet as you go in through. That might be a good use of your time for revision. In terms of the recording for the webinar, um, I've been told that they'll be shared through an email during the week. Um, if that helps anyone. Um, yeah, so this was till 10 till 11. So yeah, if anyone needs to go, they can. I'll just be sticking around to answer any questions. No worries. For situational judgment, do you think effectiveness is the most important out of effective well-timed professional appropriate questions? Um, I think it could be. Remembering that kind of patient safety kind of outweighs everything. So that's definitely the most important, and that's not really in the triangle. Um, well-timed professional, it depends on the scenario, really. You see, the questions we've been going through, the one we did today about the doctors who were talking about patient, and then the different answers were kind of discussing it with them then and there, discussing it with them at the end of the day, discussing it at the end of the week. That kind of question, you can tell that well timed is quite important in that scenario. So it is different, but yeah, you need to be effective because if it's not effective out of the triangle, then it's not going to be appropriate. So yeah, I think effectiveness probably is right. So if you get rid of that one, there's no point even doing that. Yeah. Um. Okay. Um. Yeah, I'm really sorry about the confusion over the timing of the meeting. I didn't have anything to do with that. But if you email kind of six med, they might be able to offer you some support on that. But yeah, the meeting was from 10 till 11, unfortunately. Do you have any tips for not seeing any improvements? Perhaps for a long time, I'm still scoring very low. Is that in all sections or is that just in a specific section? Maybe that's in 2 weeks. Anything I can do? Also struggling a bit with SJT, I can get you to kind of helpful. Um, UCAT's in 2 weeks. That's plenty of time. I would set yourself kind of little timetable between now and then, and split the sections of the UCAT each day. So you're kind of covering everything over the 2 weeks. And as you get closer, start focusing more on the things you're struggling with. Again, getting a tutor works for some people. So yeah, it definitely can help. And as I said to someone else, they can help you set that timetable. They can go through questions with you and kind of see where your thinking is and try and realign that to what the answer of the questions want a bit more. So yeah, that can be helpful. So there were situations where if a registrar breaches confidentiality, patient lift, it's just that you observe it if they do it again. But if it's a med student, you would take immediate action. Why is that? Um, Obviously I'm not particularly sure of the exact scenario you're talking about, because the scenario will change what the answer is. Um, but if potentially if they were talking about the patient in the lift and no one else was there, that it could be, they're not impacted anyone directly yet. So it'd just be like, oh, it's not great, but if they do it again, I should let them know. Whereas maybe the med student was talking about them in the canteen in front of other patients or things like that. Those little nuances can change it slightly. Um, for decision making, narrative based questions. Long describing voice from home. Yeah, you could do. The other way to do it would be to flag all of those questions, the narrative ones, guess them, and answer the rest of the decision making and come back to it. Um, because then kind of you might have more time at the end to go through them. And if they're taking up more time, they might. It depends. If they're kind of the questions that you're really good at, you might want to give yourself a bit more time. But in my opinion, when I did my UCAT, they were the type of questions that I wasn't 100% sure on. So I would have guessed and flagged all of them. So I had built up loads of extra time, answered the rest of the decision making questions, which I was more confident on, and then gone back and answered them. Decision making and VR. So decision making, I think, is all about practice and the different sections of decision making, splitting up your UCAT revision into those different sections, and practicing them individually and identifying which areas you are weaker in. Okay, so if you're weaker in Venn diagrams and decision making, that's something that you can practice and do practice questions on and get more confident. Um, and yeah, decision making is good. Keep practicing. Verbal reasoning is quite tricky, and a lot of people find it very tricky. I think it's all about timing. So you need to read the question, find a keyword in the question, find that keyword in text, and skim read around it. If you're not sure, you need to be flagging, guessing, and skipping. Okay, that's all there is really to it. Um, mm, okay, we'll just do a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up, guys. Um, to how to gain confidence in your score. Um, so as I said, setting out a little timetable for yourself between now and the exam. You can even write the scores you're getting now, and each day kind of so you put like the dates on this side, and along the top you could put decision making, VR, SJT, QR, abstract reasoning, and just write a little box in the dates for every score you're getting. And hopefully you could start to see yourself improve as you're practicing, and that should help you gain a bit more confidence. Really struggle with the VR long questions like following conclusions, assumptions. How can I improve? Um, so the long questions are very tricky. Um, Practicing them is the only way to really start to feel more confident and get better at them. But also knowing your weaknesses is also a really important tip in the UCAT. So knowing your weaknesses and knowing when to guess, flag, and skip to optimize getting points in other areas. Okay. Um, so I'm sorry it's not an ideal answer. But yeah, practicing and then just knowing your weaknesses really. In VR, I would always so you've got the questions that are kind of multiple choice and the questions that are longer. I would always answer all the multiple choices. So as the longer questions came up, I would always guess and flag and skip them. And then and then come back and do the longer ones after. I haven't really got time to scroll back on the sides because I've got to go. But you should be getting sent a recording of this webinar by email this week anyway. So that is all the questions we've got time for today. Thank you so much, everyone who's joined and everyone who's stayed. You should be getting an email with the link to this webinar that's been recorded today during the week. If there's any problems with that, then email 6med and they surely will help you out. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Now have a good rest of your days. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you very much for being so engaged. It really helps, everyone's learning. So thank you, guys.